Welcome to What the Decks, where over the course of a lunch hour, we take the idea for a deck build from Lunchbox to Deckbox. I'm your host, Skylar, and today I get to play the role of Deck Doctor. We'll be diving into a deck submitted by Wellner, viewer and local of mine, and I'm pretty excited. He's got a pretty fresh idea for us to jump into today. That is the Gryselle's Arenai paired with Voidcursed Thralls. So I'm particularly interested in this as an idea because whoever we give the curse to, we will like buff their initial defense, not their double dodge, but their initial defense, and then any dodge that they roll, they'll be able to damage mitigate. So we kind of get the best of both worlds when we're looking at like a single single dice defense profile. There we go. Words are hard. So today, that means we are on a segment B. Segment A, being our fresh builds, was last week and will be again next week. Currently being play tested is the Bloodthirsty Court. Did I nail that? No. What did we call them? Bloodthirsty Hosts. Way better. And that test drive is going really fun. It's an interesting puzzle, and I am very excited to report on it. There are a couple tweaks I had to make right out of the gate. I've played 3 games already. So I guess not necessarily right out of the gate, but after 3 games, I was like, there's some cards that need to change. So we've got some recommendations that we're going to get to swap in ahead of time and be able to comment on as well. So I look forward to that next week. But this week, let's dive into the arena with Gryselle's Arenai. Gryselle? What do you do with that Y? All right. So as we dive in, we're going to first just take a look at the fighter cards for those unfamiliar. It's something that I kind of started sewing into every episode here. So, you know what? I thought at least one of them started on a single dodge. That's funny. So I guess the curse will bring them down as far as an amount of dice goes, but it'll make that single dice a little harder. Reduce their chances at damage reduction overall. They're not rolling 2 dice to reduce, and they can't ever get a double dodge. One thing that we definitely need to address as we dive in here is each fighter change the acrobatic ability on both inspired and uninspired sides of the card to read as follows. When this fighter is dealt damage by an attack action, reduce that damage by 1 to a minimum of 0. For each dodge in the defense roll. So the change here being to a minimum of 0. This used to be to a minimum of 1, as you can see right here. All right, so they all have unique inspires, but they also get to unanimously inspire whoever is not there yet in the 3rd round. So that's how we get to our better sides. We get to play around with an ability called Combo, where we get to make multiple attacks. So we see that here baked into Thralla. Follow-up reaction. After this fighter's attack action with Combo, make this attack action. So you'll notice there, it doesn't need to be successful, just needs to have Combo. And then we can use this follow-up. In fact, this is how she inspires, or this fighter makes an attack action as a reaction. So if she does follow up, she inspires. She's going to be the easiest one to inspire. So I'm not going to really dive into their stats too much, but we'll talk about how they inspire, kind of things that quickly set them apart. But there we are, if she were to be inspired. So as I go over their inspire, we'll flip them over, and we'll dive further into the build. Pretty great attacks up front that continue to be good, to be worthwhile. All right, and so Gryselle, the Slaughterer, she has the Artist's Blades over here, and she inspires from a critical hit. So not just a crit in her roll, but one that goes through. And she has Grievous to boot, so like She wants it doubly bad, and she has combo, but you need to find a follow-up item for her to be able to use. And she switches on accuracy, becomes just insanely good on this side. Ritaria. Now, Ritaria does gain flying. That's something that really sets her apart and can be very missed. If this fighter's attack action staggers an enemy fighter, it does have stagger innately. So as long as she's going for somebody who has more than 2 health, she'll be able to inspire if she lands a successful attack. And during this fighter's charge super action, this fighter has the flying trait. So she has it both on the charge on this side, as well as then just permanently on this side. So she can, I guess that's interesting, just in the fact that like she gains the ability to kind of use it for movement instead of charge. So that's cool. She could barge with a flying move there. And then on to Calexis. So Calexis inspires if you roll 4 or more attack dice for this fighter's attack roll. How would you go about doing that when you're only throwing 2 dice? Well, obviously you could use some sort of boosts, but also blur reaction. After this fighter's attack roll, roll 1 attack dice for each success you rolled, including critical successes, and add these to the roll. So for every success you roll here, you get to roll another dice. Now, this is after the attack roll, right? So you don't then continue to roll based on like more successes gained. No, it's you roll the once, you see how many successes you have, you roll that many more. But if you roll 4, she's getting inspired. So that's pretty cool. And just like the others, she has combo baked in, but you need to get her a follow-up. They all have that. The only one that comes with a follow-up built in is Thralls. And Traxia. Traxia's got a really funny ability that we'll talk about just a little bit. Buckler Jab. Deal 1 damage to an adjacent attacker targeting this fighter. Now, this is a critical defense ability. So you need to crit in the defense roll, and you need to win the defense roll. You can't just tie it. A critical defense is only unlocked when you win the defense roll, which is really rough. Like, you're on 1 dice. If they crit, you crit. You're gonna feel like you won that roll, but yeah, you just tied and avoided the damage there. You're actually still unable to access Buckler Jab. But if they roll a success, or 4 successes for that matter, and you roll that 1 crit, then not only have you stopped it altogether, but Buckler Jab's going through. She's got an extremely accurate attack on this side. She's probably only ever going to inspire in the 3rd round because of the fact that it's so hard for her ability to go off. It's on 1 dice, and those conditions have to be met. But here we are. If she does get to the other side, she deals 2 on the Buckler Jab. And I suppose if we don't... this is going to be such a fun build to explore. So we get to look at what Wellner has put together for us. And we get to... decide on what the game plan is, or like try to figure out if we can tell what the game plan is here, see what its strengths are, where it might be lacking or struggling, see if there's any recommendations that we can make for the build. So very curious as to what his game plan is going to look like. I wonder if he's leaning straight into the Voidcursed going on Traxia at the beginning, because there's no negative being presented to her by receiving the curse. But again, I kind of enjoy the fact that you can change their defense profile to be like, I'm either defending or I'm reducing the damage, assuming supports aren't rolled. So that's interesting. Let's dive in. Okay, so we have Lethal Spectacle to start our surges off here. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that attack action took the target out of action, and 1 or more of your warband's flourish gambits were persisting during that action. After a friendly fighter's... Okay, so it's a kill surge that also requires 1 or more of our flourish gambits were persisting during that attack action. So right away, we want to ask the question about how many flourishes do we have. I think they're actually all named as such too. So immediately, I think we have 4. Yeah, that's a nice touch that they all have flourish directly in the name. So 4 cards to support a single surge. I think is good. It also relying on a kill is a bit rough. But I do know that these persist generally until you have a successful, or until after, in which, yeah. Usually they need a successful attack in order for these to go away. So you could get more shots at it, and this isn't locked down to one particular one of our gals here. So ritual performance. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that attack action resulted in a critical hit, or that attack action dealt precisely enough damage to take the target out of action. Okay, sweet. So, yeah, if we roll crit now, we're generally rolling. Well, here, let's go to our previous side because this is how we're going to start the game. So this is how I want to assess surges. You know, with 3 of us, we're throwing three dice. So good shot at getting that critical hit and dealing precise damage. We have various damage profiles, 2, 1. We could even Grievous up to 3. But if we're Grievousing, we're already getting the critical hit. So that's really nice there as well. It's funny, like one might think, oh, it's critical hit because like you're going to get that Grievous damage off, and then that might not make it precise. Well, so you can actually, Grievous is a May. So if you were to roll a crit on somebody with Grievous for this attack, you could choose the May and actually kind of like score both sides of it. Just something to keep in mind. It really doesn't come up. Like when are you not going to want that extra damage to punch through? But if this card was strictly, you know, that attack action dealt precisely enough damage to take the target out of action, and those cards exist, Grievous can throw a wrench in there if you don't know that it's a May. All right. Storm of Blades. Score this immediately after your warband's 4th or subsequent attack action in the same phase. So either we spent all 4 activations, you know, charging or attacking in some form, or we had combo come up or out of sequence attacks come up. So this probably seems like a pretty bread and butter surge for them. When does one decide, so this is from chat here, from Andy. Hi, Andy. When does one decide if they want Grievous or not? After defense roll or before? I believe it would need to be considered a critical success, which would be after. Yep. So, because, yeah, that's got to be the case. It's a good question, but pretty confident it's after the defense roll, given the fact that it needs to be a critical success, be counted as that before you get access to a critical ability. So, final answer. All right. Involuntary interdiction. Score this immediately after a Voidcursed fighter's attack action takes the target out of action. So one of the tricks with this card is that, let's see, do we have it with us? Yeah, Reshaping Demise. So I always think this is pretty funny. So you can get this with any Voidcursed fighter that gets a kill, right? So you could have Voidcursed one of them, and then they kill one of you. And with our life, now this is a very swingy warband. Like either you're going to have games where you just keep rolling dodges, which is a 1/6% chance on each dice, right? So, or 1/6%. I don't think you say it that way. It's 1/6 odds, regardless. So you only have the single facing that's reducing damage, and if that keeps coming up for you, you're going to be unkillable. However, like eventually somebody's going to fall. So if you void curse your opponent, they can score involuntary interdiction for you. You can obviously do it yourself, but here's the really funny thing is Reshaping Demise will also score this card for you. So reaction, use this during an enemy fighter's attack action after the deal damage step. If the target would be taken out of action, each fighter adjacent to the target is void cursed. So after the deal damage step is before the out of action check, right? So we're able to pass the void curse over to our opponent mid attack, and then afterwards we can say that an attack made by a void curse fighter took us out of action because they were indeed void curse before that attack was over. So just a funny trick. that's available to you there. So anytime I run involuntary interdiction, I try to squeeze Reshaping Demise in. These two are pretty paired together in my brain. Lash into Motion. Score this immediately after the third or subsequent move action made by friendly Voidcursed fighters in the same phase. So initially, I feel like this card is going to be a bit hard here because we don't have any tricks to get extra movement out built into our fighters. So for example, if we're playing Hexbane's Hunter and we Voidcurse one of the dogs, well then after we've activated and moved 3 hunters, then our Voidcursed dog could move each time and just score this for us. So that's what I mean by like movement tricks that could make this easier for you. We're gonna have to do it the hard way here. We're going to have to it's friendly fighters only too, so we can't just Voidcurse them and hope that they'll move to help towards this. So we have to get multiple fighters on our side Voidcursed. All right, and Surrendered Will. Score this immediately after an opponent activation step if one or more enemy fighters are Voidcursed. So if you happen to luck into both Involuntary Interdiction and Surrendered Will at the same time, die and Reshaping Burst, or Reshaping Demise, I mean, and boom, you've just scored 2 surges. Now remember, when a surge scores, it doesn't cash in until, so like, for example, Involuntary Interdiction. So you're going to score this, right? And let's say, so you put this down as soon as that attack has taken you out of action. And this is working again because of the timing here. Scores immediately after a Voidcursed fighter's attack action takes the target out of action. So it's not waiting until after the attack action or an activation in which an attack action occurred. It takes the target out of action. So right after the out of action check, and that's why this works so well, is because it's right before that check. Is when Reshaping Demise will turn that fighter Voidcursed. So we have this in hand, we die, we lose a fighter, and it's to an enemy Voidcursed fighter, regardless of how they became Voidcursed. You will put this down on the table the moment your fighter has been taken out of action to signify that the condition has been met. But you don't score it until you get to the next surge step. So they might have reactions to that attack action yet that they need to process. You might have reactions, then inspirations, and then our surge window. At that surge window, that's when you get your glory. That's when you get your new card. And so if you then draw into Surrendered Will at that time, it's too late. So you have to wait until the next time an activation score this immediately after an opponent's activation step. So the next time the enemy fighter has that activation. Which means you'll probably want to keep that fighter alive for a moment. Just most people know everything I just said. I just wanted to provide a sequencing example for those that don't. All right. So far, like, get one of them Voidcursed. Have a Voidcursed kill. So we've got a kill surge. We have a kill surge here that requires a flourish. Kill surge. Well, this one can just be a critical hit. Otherwise, it's a kill surge, and I feel like more often than not, your critical hit, I mean, unless you're up against big, healthy warbands, your critical hit is going to be synonymous with killing them here. But I could be wrong. Like, we do, like, 1 damage here without Grievous. So, like, that fighter can help us score this. So it would be incorrect to classify this fully as a kill surge here. So Ritual Performance and Storm of Blades are probably going to be the cards that help get the ball rolling before deaths occur, unless we get a card combo with Surrendered Will to allow us to Voidcurse an enemy fighter. And Lash into Motion, I think, is going to be hard. So that kind of gives us an idea of where we're at with our surges. And on to end phase. We have Har-Kuran Hurricane. And I just wanted to say Harkonnen Hurricane. I'm a big Dune fan, and every time I read this card, I always think of Harkonnen right away. But Har-Kuran Hurricane. Score this in an end phase if 3 or more friendly fighters are in enemy territory. So this is forcing us over the line on that condition, or each surviving friendly fighter is inspired. And Traxia is weighing this down. So either we want to be really risky with Traxia to get her killed, or often we're probably not going to score this until the third end phase. I see a lot of Arenai players dangle Traxia early to get rid of her. Maybe this is one of those reasons why. Have I ever piloted the Arenai? I don't know if I've ever piloted the Arenai. Sometimes I forget if I've gotten like a single game or two in with the Warband, but I've definitely played against them quite a bit. I'm going to take a drink. I'm really parched. Feeling it. Oh, thank you. All right. So, next, In Praise of Cain. Score this. So, 2, 3. We're looking at a total glory ceiling of 20 here. Is Reshape it? Yeah, Reshape the Realm is here. I was going to say, whoa, where's that all coming from? In Praise of Cain. Score this in an end phase if each surviving fighter has one or more charge tokens and or one or more wound tokens. Each surviving fighter. So we are looking for both sides of the field to help score this. So if your opponent knows that you have this, they can try to take a healthy fighter and just move them to the back. And then you're not, like, if you can't reach that fighter or get a wound down on that fighter in some way, then they're actually just going to deny In Praise of Cain. So this can be really hard in a best of 3. It's not impossible. Like early, if they don't know that you run this, you could score this really easily. The difficulty can be early games or early in subsequent games. Oh my gosh, I'm struggling. We're gonna grab a drink from the other thing. This is coffee. So, yes, difficult early. Your opponent can always play around it, but that's not the worst thing. Like an opponent knowing that you have this and them spending time to try to play around it. Yes, it's 3 points. It's worth their time. But what are they giving up? And as the game goes on, I feel this gets easier because you can start spreading those wounds around. And unless they have heals, there's really nothing that's going to stop them from being like able to contribute to this from that point on. One of the things that can be rough about this is if you are relying on the wound counters to get you through, then you're also targeting different fighters that could else be ganged up on and taken down altogether. So you kind of have to spread wounds around for this card. It's 3 points. I think it's worth it. I actually really find this card to be a blast. So I like seeing it here. I'm not surprised to see it here along with Reshaped Realm because I know Wellner, and Wellner is going to go for the really big scores and see them pay off big in the games where they come through, and like that takes one game out of the best of 3. So he might not be able to rely on it in the next game, but now he's in their head and their game plan changes because they have to work on denial. And he can then use that time to help him score his other things and press the advantage. So there's different philosophies with cards like these. Reshaped Realm. This card is a blast. It's interesting seeing it in here. So we are kind of going to be stripping down their defense dice throughout the course of the game in order to help us get to Reshaped Realm. So this card helped coin a term called tag row. And this is coined by Battle Mallet, and I love it because you're playing tag aggro. And you either want to tag Voidcursed on as many fighters as you can get it on, and those that you can't, you want to kill, and that's the aggro part. So as long as at the end of the game, every surviving fighter on both sides of the field are Voidcursed, you're going to find yourself with 4 points. And that's a hell of a payout. That's a really, really fun goal card. Threatening Presence. Score this in an end phase if there are more friendly fighters in 2 or more territories than there are enemy fighters in those territories. Voidcursed always helps with this because if you're just over the line or you're hanging out in no one's territory, you're unable to be driven back, and that'll help hold your position towards Threatening Presence. I think this card's very good here. So we can rely early game on that likely being our side of the field, unless we're playing against invading aggro, and then it kind of gets messy. But immediately out of the gate, they have to address threatening presence by coming in. We have 5 fighters, and depending on how they commit, you want to go second when you have this in your hand, by the way, if possible. Depending on how they commit, we can then start spreading into no one's territory or their territory to try to get our 2 territory requirement here. Unceasing imperatives. Score this in an end phase if each surviving Voidcursed fighter from 1 or more warbands each has 1 or more move and or charge tokens. This is much easier when we're at the start of the game. We only have the 1 fighter, assuming they survive. But as the game goes on, this does get harder if we're also going for Reshaped Realm, just simply because we need so many more fighters on each side to contribute to this. However, even with this being harder in those cases, I still find it to be extremely reliable. The times I see Unceasing Imperatives not score is when you haven't managed to get somebody on their side Voidcursed yet, and your Voidcursed fighter died, and you weren't able to get another one cursed. But most of the time, this is just going to be a free 1 point, regardless of when it comes up. Uncounted cost. Score this in an end phase if 4 or more fighters are out of action, and 2 or more of those fighters are Voidcursed. So when asked to describe the Arenai, I would describe them, like, without any pairing, I would describe them as gambling aggro. Or fast aggro is another term that I've heard applied to them and would agree with. The gambling aggro comes with things like Flourish, but for the most part, like, this warband is all about like getting in there, dealing damage, and like surviving as long as they can off of their acrobatics in order to stay in the game and keep pushing it, right? It's almost like push your luck aggro to a degree. So seeing us go for things like Uncounted Cost and Reshaped Realm, I think is really, really fun, because the idea here is we're gonna die along the way, and that's fine, but hopefully we're gonna kill enough of them and Void Curse enough of them where we're gonna get our big payouts anyways. So you don't build this deck thinking you're gonna have 5 fighters at the end of the game. You're gonna hope that you have a fighter or 2 going into round 3, but as long as you keep Reshaped Realm and In Praise of Cain in mind, I think the rest kind of falls into position. Harkonnen, Hurricane, and Threatening Presence, especially early game, are kind of both asking that one of those positions, those territories that you're going to outnumber in, that to be enemy territory. So that's something to keep in mind. I feel like Harkonnen Hurricane is one that you just want to get late game. Like, this is 2 points late game, and a tenuous 2 points early, where you have to like push those 3 fighters over the line. I really like the end phase suite here, and I don't have too big of an issue with the surge suite. Like, you can't build a aggro deck and not expect to see kill surges in here. Last into Motion sticks out as one that hopefully we can find something better to put into that spot. Let's take a look at the rest of the picture here. So now that we understand kind of our objective suite, what else do we have supporting it? So we already mentioned Lethal Spectacle has 4 flourishes helping it out here. So we have -1 defense to a minimum of 1 from friendly fighters, and +1 dice to friendly fighters range 1 and range 2 attack actions. So you'll notice we always have kind of like a negative. I think it's always the first presented item. Yeah. We have a negative that's going to be maintained while this flourish is out, and a positive. And that's where that gambling comes in, because this doesn't go away until you succeed. So you're betting that you're going to be successful, and you're not going to have to suffer the negatives here. Now, -1 defense to a minimum 1 from friendly fighters. If we're void cursing our fighters and going nuts on that, then we don't really care too much about this -1 defense right here. Do we have a +1 defense in this deck? I don't remember if they come with one. I don't think they do. because that would be nuts. That would be putting them on 3 dodge most of the time. Yeah. So especially if our Voidcursed fighters are the ones that are in places that are going to be attacked, we don't care about this too much. But +1 dice, cool. Enough said. Fatal Flourish. After a friendly fighter's attack action that failed, deal 1 damage to the attacker. So this is a bummer. +1 damage to friendly fighters range 1 and range 2 attack actions, though. So again, we're gambling. Hopefully this goes off and we get the extra damage, opposed to if we fail, it hangs out and it can continue to deal damage to us if we're unsuccessful on attacks. Leaping Flourish. Friendly fighters cannot make attack actions other than during charge super actions. And so we have to charge. It's not the worst negative in the world. Friendly fighters have the flying trait. Now, this is interesting. This might be in here just to make sure that we have 4 flourishes. I'm not sure this is doing enough for us. This effect persists until the end of the phase. Okay, yeah. Is that wording? Sometimes GW will do this thing where they'll slip extra words into something that you have kind of started internalizing as never changes. And so like here I saw that, it took up 2 lines. So immediately when I saw 3 lines here, I was like, wait, is there anything different? No, this is the exact same phrasing. And Spinning Flourish. Friendly fighters range 1 attack actions are not considered to have combo. So we lose combo while this is out. That's okay if we are not relying on anything for follow-up here. Friendly fighters range 1 attack actions have scything. So all of a sudden we can do multi-target attacks. So it makes total sense that follow-up would also be turned off here, because follow-up plus scything gets to be applied on each attack instance after this fighter's attack action with combo. Yeah. So if you're playing them in Championship and you have something like Mighty Swing that offers a your first range 1 attack action and the next activation has scything, that's brutal. And although she can't make use of it, but like once you get a follow-up item on like Gryselle, all of a sudden Gryselle is running in doing scything, and on each attack she's also doing a follow-up. So it makes a lot of sense to see that turned off here in the flourish that allows scything. Unquenchable Fervor. The next time a friendly fighter is dealt damage, reduce that damage by 2 to a minimum of 1. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until damage is reduced in this way. This card is wild because you get to sequence your acrobatic against this. So first off, if acrobatic reduces the attack down to 0 on its own, then Unquenchable Fervor gets to stay out. However, so the next time a friendly fighter is dealt damage, when this fighter is dealt damage, so we're looking at the same window here. So both of these effects are happening at the exact same time. Reduce that damage by 1 to a minimum of 1 for each dodge in the defense roll. So if you have an attack coming in dealing 2 damage, right, and you rolled 2 dodges, you could reduce it with Unquenchable Fervor, because you, as the person that owns both of these abilities, you get to sequence which one you want to have happen first, but you're not going to pick Unquenchable Fervor in that case, because then you're going to lose it. So you're going to pick Acrobatic instead if you have those 2 dodge. That's going to reduce it down to 0, and Unquenchable Fervor gets to stay out because it didn't contribute to any damage reduction. Now, because you can sequence these, another like path that could occur is Unquenchable Fervor can reduce, let's say, a 3 damage attack down to 1, right? Next time you'd be dealt damage, reduce that damage by 2 to a minimum of 1. And so you have a 3 damage attack coming in. You reduce it down to 1, and then if you have a dodge left over, because that ability, Acrobatic, can reduce to 0, you can then have that sequence as the second ability to trigger and reduce that minimum of 1 that you just took it down to 0 now. So this card got even better when they made that Acrobatic errata, and it's really cool. This should be, I think, in every Arenai deck, regardless of what we're pairing it with. It's an extremely strong card. All right, Reshaping Burst. Choose a Voidcursed fighter. Roll a magic dice for each fighter within 2 hexes of the chosen fighter. On a roll of focus, that fighter is Voidcursed. So 1/3 odds here. We have 2 focuses on a 6-sided dice. Critical results don't assist us here. Chat, Jake, also gonna have to catch this tonight. I'm super interested in hearing the CC report and also this new deck pairing. Well, the CC report is next week, and I'm so pumped to be doing that. Jake has also been testing that deck, and we've been sharing and comparing notes, so that's gonna factor into the field report as well. But thanks for stopping in. Thanks also goes out to El Caminis. I wonder if it's El Caminis, who dropped in at the start of the show to say a similar thing. Jake, I'd say you're looking at my list of warbands I want to play and working through them, but that list is basically the whole range. So, man, I hear you. I can't settle down on things I want to try. I have a Decunning Crew that I just built with Rhymelock Relics. I've had it built for like 2 weeks now, and I just haven't had a chance to play it yet. And I want to get them to the table because there's first just wanting to play them, this deck that I built, but also like I have so many other ideas and decks and warbands that I want to try right now that like I need to get this idea out of my head and onto the table. So we'll see how that goes. And then there's also obviously the decks on the show as well, that I'm getting to play test and explore. So yeah, I am a dog chasing cars right now when it comes to what I want to play. So with Reshaping Burst, we again only have 2 facings on our 6-sided dice, and you kind of think to yourself like, oh, okay, like that's a third chance. However, you have to do that on each fighter, and so like this card's weird. Is what I'm trying to get to. Is on my side, I think like, oh, that's okay. Like I know the odds are bad, but within 2 hexes of the chosen fighter, hopefully I'm trying to hit, like 3 to 5 fighters with this. So I'll get to make that chance roll each time. Well, it doesn't make the odds better. Like that's a logical fallacy, is thinking that like, well, I'll just keep repeating it and it'll work because eventually the odds will come out in my favor. Well, not necessarily. Now, I still like seeing Reshaping Burst here with Reshaped Realm as the goal. We might take a look to see if there's anything else that we could do with this slot. Same might be true of Leaping Flourish. I'm not sure, if that's currently doing enough for us. But when I run Reshaping Burst before, I never get the success rate I want from it. Like it feels like I have a Voidcursed Thralls Exiled Dead deck that I think is a blast. Took to one of our Madtown Throwdowns and got I lost to Bobby. I lost to Draper's Wraith Creepers, which was and Toxic Terrors, which was the matchup that I feared there. But regardless, when I brought that deck, I had Reshaping Burst in there because I wanted to get as many of my Voidcursed or my zombies Voidcursed as possible. One of the mission statements with that deck, if you know me, I like looking for these really interesting things that a warband can bring to a pairing, like little combos, essentially, like head crackers, fort crackers. It's all about the fact that they can push 2 fighters onto tokens at the beginning of the game. When I built the Frostflight, Mournfrost, that's the better name. When I built Mournfrost, it was because Time Freeze works really well on 2 dodge fighters, and I thought with a ghost it would be all that more interesting because they could hang back at the beginning of the game and say, no, you go, because their Inspire wants to see you pass through people as well. Are they really going to sacrifice 2 activations, or are they going to start trying to bridge the gap? So there's these cards that stick out to me that sing with different abilities, factors that warbands can bring, and Reshaping Burst here to drive this tangent home, with the Exiled Dead, the reason I ran this is because I wanted to get as many of them Voidcursed as possible for reshaping, or Voidcursed Assault. Sweet. I'm glad to see this here. So the idea of Diantelos pushing all of these zombies into play, into their position, and not be able to get an attack because like I had to use that dance to reposition, or maybe I've already repositioned, things were looking well for me, I was able to push into the spots I want, I dance, I attack, and then I attack again. But either way, like being able to position a whole horde with his dance and then Voidcursed Assault with all of the fighters that were Voidcursed was what I wanted to try doing with that deck. That's a fun deck. I should probably post that one up somewhere. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on it, see if people wanted to give it a try. So this was kind of the mission statement card in that deck. And Reshaping Burst kept disappointing me and kept void cursing like at best one zombie when I'd be standing amongst my entire horde, Diantelos a little bit back, not within 2, and I was like, all right, let's do this, and no. So this, in my mind, continues to double down on like the gambling aspects of this deck. Like there are going to be games where this works great for you, but that's against the odds. There are going to be games where this doesn't do much for you, might not even get you a single Voidcursed fighter, because each one is that 1/3 roll. Okay, we've talked a lot here on this particular card. Let's move on to the next one. So Reshaping Demise, we've also gotten to cover already. Reshaping Snare. Now this card makes it into almost every Voidcursed deck, and for good reason. So choose a fighter on an objective or in a snare hex. It's almost never snare hex. I actually forget that language is here. And if I had been asked off memory to like rewrite this card, I would have said choose a fighter on an objective, period. That fighter is Voidcursed. I would have forgot, or in a snare hex. So as we see more snare hexes with the boards brought in by Wintermaw, and as we see more snare hexes as a result of people using them for deadly influence, which is in Hungering Parasite, keep this in mind. You might be able to catch somebody off and void curse them unexpectedly, because they may also be summarizing this in their head as on an objective. But so this is threatening your opponent, challenging them almost to go ahead, stand on an objective. And if they do so with a fighter that they don't want void curse because it could take away their range, it could take away their special attack action, or their special action, it could reduce them down to a single shield, and maybe you have cleave and they were rocking dodge, whatever it is, or simply it's helping contribute to Surrendered Will, it's helping contribute to Reshaped Realm. You can even choose your own fighter, like, so you can say, oh, you know what, it's time, I need another Voidcursed fighter. Maybe I lost my one and I really need one for scoring purposes this round. Get one of your own on an objective and reshape them. There's so much utility to this card. There's a reason people bring it, because not only can you use it to create Void Curse on your side, which can help with uncounted costs and Reshape Realm, but it can really threaten some control of their fighters. All right, so the worst thing is if, like, this is a hard lesson that I think a lot of us that play against Voidcursed Thralls learns. If you do need to get onto that objective, and this is your turn, then you might heavily want to consider just delving underneath it. Maybe you spend a guard action later, so that you can delve it back for scoring purposes at the end of the game. But if you don't want that particular fighter to be reshaped, then your first thing should be delving that token, and I've forgotten it, like, in the moment, and done like an upgrade or something else, got hit by Reshaping Snare, and then be like, I could have delved, I was going to, I don't know why I did this other thing first, so just keep that in mind. Voidcursed Assault. Each friendly Voidcursed fighter makes the following attack action. Reactions cannot be made during this attack action, so we can't do follow-ups on it, but I mean, it doesn't have combo anyway, so we weren't going to be able to. But all reactions are turned off. Yeah. keep that in mind. And reshape. If this attack action succeeds, the target is Voidcursed. So this is not only a source of damage, but this is going to help us towards more Voidcursed fighters. If we're running Reshaped Realm, we're bringing Voidcursed Assault. So happy to see this here. I think the card's a lot of fun, and maybe some people agree or would disagree with me on the inclusion of, like, if you're running Reshaped Realm, you run Voidcursed Assault. But I think it's probably, like, especially if you can get your side Voidcursed, is probably the best way to help get their side Voidcursed instead of having to focus solely on killing them. And it's another attack from your fighters. Can you imagine running with a Voidcursed Thralls, especially if she's inspired, and we're like, all right, we're going to do Barbed Whip. Now we're going to do Bladed Buckler. Power. Now we're going to do Voidcursed Assault. It's like, oh my gosh, would you just stop attacking me, please? That's 3 attacks in a row without a chance to play power or get an activation to pull that fighter away from the threat there. And Zealot Imperative, +1 dice to friendly Voidcursed fighters' attack actions. This effect persists until the end of the round, until a successful attack action is made by a friendly Voidcursed fighter, or until another domain gambit is played. So we don't have any other domains, so we don't have to worry about this getting taken out of our deck. What's interesting about the +1 dice here is this can help. So if I have that in my opening hand, maybe I avoid Curse Calexis. So we get her an extra dice so that she can blur off of potentially 3 dice, better odds of getting at least 1, and then she's inspired. So that's cool. It also has really good synergy with these flourishes, because this is going to hang out until a success, right? So you can use your Voidcursed fighters and Zealot Imperative to help kind of guarantee successes across these 4 flourishes. So that's cool. So what was the... So we have to charge, but we get flying. Yeah, okay. All right. Over to the upgrades. Yeah, so far in here, I think this is all doing a great job of heading towards our game plan. And I think Reshaping Burst, although I understand it, we'll see if there's anything that we can put in there instead. And Leaping Flourish. Those are my standouts as things that I'd like to see if we can't make recommendations for. And again, Lashed into Motion is sitting there as well. Upgrades. We have Blood Sigil. -1 damage to a minimum of 1 from attack actions that target this fighter. So that's wild, because we're able, another source of damage to reduction, right? And then if this is a minimum of 1, we're also then able to, as the damage is being dealt, shake it off, reduce it down to 0. If we were able to get it down to that minimum, which means with this, an Unquenchable Fervor, an Acrobatic, you could potentially shake a 5 damage attack. That's coming in. What that would look like, by the way, is you'd have to have both your defense dice. So we couldn't avoid curse this fighter. They roll 2 dodges, which is like wildly improbable, but let's say they do. So this will reduce the first damage. So we're down to 4. Unquenchable Fervor will reduce another 2. So we're down to 2. And then Acrobatic will shake off the remaining 2. So you can shake off up to 5 damage if the stars align for you with Blood Sigil. Devotee of Slaughter. You cannot give this card to a leader. +1 wounds. So as long as they aren't our 4 health slaughterer over here, we can bump somebody up to 3. That seems pretty good. The more wounds you have, the further damage reduction can go. Croup Lash. So I know this is, one of their follow-up options. I wish they just would have keyworded this as follow-up. That would have been nice. Like if that was just formalized. Instead of reaction after this fighter's attack action with combo, make this attack action. So it's the same, right? We'll call this follow-up for the rest of the video. And it does have Ensnare as well. But the fact that we have a follow-up attack that we can give to anybody means all of a sudden we're getting multiple attack chances out of our other fighters. I mean, you get this down on somebody before you get something like Storm of Blades out. All of a sudden, you're activating 2 fighters to get Storm of Blades because of you can activate Thrall and then somebody else. Score this immediately after your warband's 4th or subsequent attack action in the same phase. Oh, wow. Voidcursed Assault will also help towards that. Man, that's a fun card here. Okay, so Lacerating Blow also has follow-up. Is a range 1 option. So we have a range 2 on 2 Fury and a range 1 on 2 Smash there. Peregrine of the Arena. After the declare attack action step of this fighter's range 1 or range 2 attack action, pick one. So it doesn't say first attack action here, you know, like in a round or something like that. It's each attack action that they're granted. So Scything, you know, will, if you combo this with Spinning Flourish, you're getting this choice after the declare attack action step of each of those attacks. Yeah, that's wild. As well as with the follow-ups. So give this fighter 1 guard token, +1 dice to that attack action until it is resolved, +1 damage to that attack action until it is resolved. So those are your options. Those are some pretty awesome options. This is often touted as their best upgrade, and I can't really argue with that. It's really good. You're always going to want one of those. Like, you're always going to be excited to have one of those going into each attack. It's really cool. In fact, like when playing against the Arenai, if I see this come out, that person is my target for the rest of the game. And unfortunately, this always ends up on Gryselle, so she's usually extremely hard to take down, and she gets to continue to threaten this. Piercing Strike. So we have another follow-up here with range 2 and cleave this time. Also Fury. Okay. And then refashioned. So really making sure that we get to those extra attacks here. So we have 3 different things that are giving us extra attacks. One of the things that's nice about the range 2 stuff as well is there's less sweat about driving them back. So if you succeed or tie on a range 1 with like Calexis or Atraxia, and you've given them a range 2 follow-up, that's fine. Drive them back and then proceed to continue attacking them. No fear of accidentally like keeping them put next to you. And you really don't want fighters next to you, just in general, like I'm sure everybody knows that, because of the supported position that you're now offering them. If the round rolls over and they win the roll-off, they have a standing attack against you, assuming they have range 1. And again, that can just be used for support. They can decide to charge somebody into that position. But with Breakneck Slaughter in particular, I just wanted to call this out, since that is a pretty popular pairing. If you can break up, what is it, Running Rings, I think. There's a card in there that wants to see 2 of their fighters adjacent to your fighters, and they have like charge tokens or move tokens. I'd have to double check that. But it's a card you can play around, and so you want to be able to drive back people, especially against a Breakneck Slaughter build. Refashioned Priorities. Use this after another fighter's move, action, or attack action. You know what? Hold on. That Running Rings thing is going to bother me. Is it? Do I have that correct? Is it Running Rings? 2 or more friendly fighters are adjacent to 1 or more enemy fighters in enemy territory, and 2 or more of those friendly fighters each have 1 or more move and or charge tokens. 2 points. Yeah. Now, mind you, this isn't like the #1 card in that deck, but they have some pretty reliable scoring, so I try to like keep in mind the scoring I can negate. And so this is a card I keep in mind because I don't know until I've seen them discard it or score it if they're running it. So I like to just make sure I keep that scoring avenue unavailable as much as I can. Refashion Priorities and Refashion Reactions. These are amazing cards that should make it into every Voidcursed build. I would be hard-pressed to imagine a case where these shouldn't be included. because they just offer you so much. So they both do the same thing. They allow you to react to a move or an attack action that was made not adjacent to the person who has this upgrade, to the fighter that has this upgrade. So as long as they haven't ended that activation next to you with that move, maybe that's part of a charge. And this is one of the ways you play around this, is you, even if you don't want the refashioned fighter to be your target, you might need to offer them support if you don't want them to use this reaction. You'll charge next to them, attack your intended target, but because you made sure that you were adjacent, you've locked them out of being able to use the refashioned reactions here. So after another fighter's move or attack, and so this is yours and this is theirs, both players, all fighters contribute to this. So again, if that fighter is not adjacent to this fighter, you may use this reaction. This fighter can make a move action that must end on a feature token. That's priorities. So priorities is feature tokens. And bad habit of summarizing, I would have said objectives. I would have thought that this was objectives only. Feature tokens are available here, which is really interesting. This reaction cannot be used more than once per round. And refashioned reactions. So allowing the same reaction window, this fighter makes one move action that must end adjacent to one or more fighters. This reaction cannot be used more than once per round. So you can use both of these to help with threatening presence. But that is, and like Hurricane over here. But there's so much more that you can do with these. Like, it's just about all the sort of different repositioning games that you can do to provide different opportunities you didn't have available to yourself before, to deny opportunities for them. You can even outmaneuver them. So if anybody ever comes against a refashioned wearer, like you've got somebody upgraded with these refashioned upgrades, if they ever come up against you and they don't press into that adjacent position for their charge, they're at range 2, range 3, then you can politely ask them if they're sure. But if you're in a tournament setting, like you'll probably just want to take, as long as it was clear. This is so rude. That's why I have the like caveats here as to like how to handle this moment. Is as long as they know that you'd put these on and they understand what these are. If they forget and they go for this range 2, this range 3, maybe they're trying to pull the reaction out of you. They're trying to bait it out of you. Or maybe they're betting that you won't do it. But because they didn't end adjacent, you can actually leave that position and potentially leave the range of their attack then, and therefore outmaneuver them. It used to be a term in the game. It's no longer keyworded. It still exists, but they're unable to make their attack action, and they're still awarded that charge token. So, okay. Kind of went into the weeds on those two. So we'll move on from them. They're really great. And here, they're pretty much the only things that are helping us with last into motion. Outside of the fact that we have abilities to get more Voidcursed fighters. Thrall Maker. Use this after the deal damage step of this fighter's attack action. The target is Voidcursed. This is a card I always want to fit into decks, especially when I run Reshaped Realm. And I like it here a lot because you can come in and attack multiple targets with combo. So you can attack one, and if you're able to deal damage to them, then you've enthralled them. They are now Voidcursed, and you can then maybe use your range 2, like Criplash, or better yet, because piercing... Nope, these have the same probability. Well, let's just say Criplash, for example, right? You can now range 2 work on a different target and Voidcurse them. So that's cool. One thing to keep in mind as you're Voidcursing the enemies is they will no longer be able to be driven back anytime you do. So just keep that in mind. If you're ever thinking like, oh, I'll Voidcurse them and then I'll push them off that objective or out of that territory. You won't be able to unless you're able to push them first before Voidcursing them. Something like this after the deal damage step. You haven't made it to the drive back step yet, so they will become Voidcursed. And when you come to that drive back step, you will no longer be able to drive them back. So just keep that in mind. And Unnatural Resilience. This card cannot be given to large fighters. -1 damage to a minimum of 1 to range 1 and range 2 attack actions that target this fighter, as long as they're Voidcursed. So we have another form of damage mitigation in here. Wow. So if I'm on 1 shield and I have Unnatural Resilience on because I'm Voidcursed, and they roll a 2 damage attack at me, would be 2 damage. This reduces it to 1. If my 1 defense dice grabs me a dodge, then I've just shaken a 2 damage attack. So it's really interesting seeing the extra source of damage mitigation in here, and I totally agree with the decision. So this is really fun. You're sacrificing your defense values to unlock more damage mitigation, more movement, more. Yeah. So what are we getting from this pairing? More attacks. We're potentially getting more dice, at least, until that Void Curse makes a successful attack. But that's going to help guarantee our flourishes. You get some really interesting stuff from this pairing. Yeah, I dig it quite a bit. This is almost too tempting. As in, like, I know I'm playtesting the Vamps right now, but I've already sunk 3 games into them, and I'm gonna sink more. But I'm tempted to also give this a shot, and then look at the Cunning Crew and see them looking back at me like, "Am I a joke to you? Are you ever gonna get to me?" All right, so we identified a few cards that maybe we make some recommendations for. So we've got a pretty clear game plan here. Let's see first about surges. So we don't want Breakneck Slaughter in our filter. We want Voidcursed Thrall and the Arenai. Okay, so what did we not take? We didn't take Acrobatic Assault. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's activation if that fighter moved through an enemy fighter's hex in that activation and that fighter made a successful attack action that targeted that enemy fighter in that activation step. Yeah, I would approve of this not being in the deck because we have to not only rely on Retaria. We not only have to rely on Retaria, but we also only have one other card that could unlock that for us. So if she's dead, she has to do the work of flying over a target and succeeding. If she is dead or does not succeed, our only backup plan is Leaping Flourish. Yeah, so that's a good leave out. We have Oliver and Chop in chat. Oliver, I can't wait to get Reshape being blasted. And Chop, what up, hexagonal homie? Thanks for joining. Happy to see you both. And hexagonal homie, I know you're currently as in love with hexagons as I am. We both have tried other game systems that have landed well with us. I'm trying to think of what that one is called. So Judgment's the obvious one here, and I was going to save that for last. Oh man, there's another game. I have like 2 Calyx cubes of stuff for it down in my basement. It's good fun. What is it? Oh, no. Well, God Tier. God Tier. I knew that God was in the name, and I was trying to piece that together. Tears of the God? No, God Tier. That's a fun MOBA inspired game. Judgment is on my to try list. Only bringing that up because we're hexagonal homies, and I'm happy to see you in chat. But back to Underworlds. All right, so let's see here. Faultless Display. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's successful attack action if the attack contained only successes. So, yeah, I probably don't like that. However, I wonder what the probability is on that, because we've got 2 successes here. Or sorry, so 2 smash and 1 smash here. So both those dice have a lot of probability to make that potentially a successful attack for us. Like each of those dice have 3 facings that'll work for us, and that's before like support are factored in. After a friendly fighter's successful attack action, so it also has to be a success. So it would be a real bummer if you rolled multiple successes on multiple dice and then got critted out. Yeah, I don't think I like faultless display. Not with like, we don't really have many re-rolls available to us. So yeah, let's leave that out. Grandstand. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that attack action succeeded and 2 or more of your Warband's flourish gambits were persisting during that action. So I also am happy to not see this now. So that attack action succeeded. That's fine because it's not asking for a kill surge, and our flourishes are going to stay out until they're successful anyways. But what this does is this forces multiple flourishes out of our hand all at once, which might not be something that we want. And it's also putting a strain on our flourishes. So if we only have 1 in hand, do we not play it this round? Are we forced to hold on to it into next round to see if, well, hold on, it would persist until the end of this phase, I think. Yeah, so you couldn't even play it going into the next round to like try to bank it. You'd have to hold it in hand, hope to draw another one, and then play both, and then finally get your successful attack. So, I mean, if you can get 2 flourishes in hand, I think Grandstand's really good, but I don't know if that's what we swap in against Lashed into Motion. I'm leaning away from it, especially since I also kind of want to lean away from Leaping Flourish. So, Gathered Thralls. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation step if 3 or more Voidcursed fighters are adjacent to each other, and 1 or more of those fighters are enemy fighters. It's 2 points. It's always tempting. It's an opponent's activation step, I think, is what puts the nail in this one, because you have to have an enemy fighter already Voidcursed. So that's going to be power card dependent on when you can make that happen and if you can make that happen. But usually it takes some time to get the ball rolling on getting an enemy fighter Voidcursed. And then 1 or more of those fighters. Yeah, so you would have had to have seen them essentially charge like into that position too, because otherwise they're going to be able to just leave. No, I don't think Gathered Thralls is the play here either. Whenever we go for Reshaped Realm, I always like want to bring this in, but never find the opportunity. Perfect Thrall. A friendly Voidcursed fighter is holding an objective, and that fighter made 1 or more successful attack actions in that activation step. I mean, I think this might be easier than Lash into Motion. I think this is kind of my pick. And Tipping Point. Score this immediately after an activation step if there are more surviving Voidcursed fighters than surviving fighters that are not Voidcursed. So you could go this route too, but this is definitely not an early game surge. So let's see. We've got a range 2 at the beginning. 2 range 2. I think that's... Does it have to be enemy territory? No, it doesn't. A friendly Voidcursed fighter is holding the objective. Yeah, so I would put in Perfect Thrall over Lash into Motion, personally. So you don't have to move 3 times with the same fighter. You don't have to have multiple Voidcursed fighters available to move for you. And so the reason I toss in Perfect Thrall is beginning of the game, try to put your feature token placements in positions that can kind of support somebody being charged and attacked, but isn't an exact landing spot off of their movement speed. And this is something that you can do. So you can, when the boards are set into place and you're starting to put down objectives, you can see what their movement values are. You can see where their starting hexes are, and you can try to plant some of your feature tokens into your own territory, that if they were to charge in, you can then like respond back against. with Perfect Thrall, or you can put a feature token. Like you can also plan landing spots for yourself. So either way, I think Perfect Thrall is something that you can use the objective placement time to prep for and help get you a score in round 1, since we have range 2 fighters. If we only had range 1 fighters, I wouldn't consider Perfect Thrall, but it is potentially something that we can use right out of the gate to get the ball rolling. Yes, you do have to succeed, but we have 2 fighters that can take cracks at that. So I think that's fine. It's better round 1 than Lashed into Motion is, for sure. And I think as the course of the game goes and battle lines get muddied, like, it will only become better. Like, another scenario that you can see happening too is you can, like, as the game goes on, you can refaction priority into that spot. So maybe something happened on the game board to open that spot up. There's an enemy fighter adjacent to it. You can use priorities to get into that space. You can use reactions as well if we're talking about an adjacent target. Priorities if they're at range 2. But if they're adjacent, you can also use something like Voidcursed Assault really quick, in power, to give you another shot at making a successful attack action from that position. So that would be my recommendation. So we have that objective spot covered now. Let's just take a look real quick at the other end phase cards. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I am really curious as to what was not taken. We have an extremely high scoring, healthy end phase pool, though, I think. In Praise of Cain is personal preference, but then again, so is Reshaped Realm. Like, both of these are cards you have to lean full tilt into as the pilot here. So let's see, did we get all of our heavy scoring? So the only things left at home 2 or higher were Bloody Show. This goes in an end phase if each surviving enemy fighter has 1 or more wound counters. So this is, in my opinion, harder than In Praise of Cain, because the enemies can contribute to In Praise of Cain with charge tokens, but Bloody Show is going to see that problem I was describing of where you have to leave fighters wounded and like spread the wounds out. That could be really hard. And yes, it's each surviving enemy fighter, so at least you can eliminate fighters, but how many attacks are you going to get off during that round that need to be spread out to help wound fighters before you can really focus on takedowns? So I support In Praise of Cain over, or wait, no, I support In Praise of Cain over Bloody Show. Forbidding Thralls, 2 or more friendly fighters are Voidcursed, and each surviving enemy fighter is in enemy territory. I think it's really hard to play that, like, that game where you're focusing on something like this that's completely out of your control. Like, if they step over the line just into no one's territory, they've canceled this, for you. So this is a card I never take. I don't really like cards like this, where you're trying to control where their movement is going to leave them, especially across 3 territories. If this was, not in your territory and you had no one's territory, like, that elevates it a little bit, but still then not enough for me. So yeah, I think those are really good leave outs. So really we would be looking at potentially reducing our ceiling here to bring in like a more reliable 1-pointer. But I don't think that's the play. I think this is a really solid suite here. So I'm not even going to dig into the 1-pointers. So let's go to Gambits, see if there's any suggestions we can make there. So yeah, I'm curious what other flourishes we have. So we have one more flourish. What's Gory Reward? Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action that succeeded. If 1 or more of your Warband's flourish gambits were persisting during that action, gain 1 spent glory. So that's neat, but we would have to lean into the flourishes and kind of detract from what else our deck can do for us. So if we felt like we had like 9 cards and that's all we needed, Gory Reward could be a good 10th card. But you then also have to make sure that you have 3, 4, 5, flourishes, like three, no less than 3, supporting it, so that hopefully you draw them into the same hand. I don't know if that's carded. I'd take very often myself, but it is cool to see essentially a surge in the power slot. That's something that we've recently seen with Skinnerkin, and Phil is really loving. Executioner's Flourish. Friendly fighters attack actions that target a fighter with no wound counters have the crit dice characteristic. With no wound counters. Okay. Friendly fighters attack actions have Grievous 1. So if you're attacking somebody that target a fighter, if you're attacking somebody, you're turning your dice characteristic into crits as your successes instead of something like Fury, where crits become your critical success. Here, it's your critical successes are your only form of successes. Yes, they still count as critical successes, but you need them, and it's going to be harder to get like a critical success through, because like if you roll 1 crit and 1 success normally, it's a pretty solid way to get through. If they've only got 1 dice, it is getting through. But here, if you were to roll like a crit and a Fury, and then they crit, they've stopped it altogether. So you're making your attacks harder for yourself as well, but you're boosting up a damage if you succeed. I agree with its exclusion, but I don't yet agree with the inclusion of Leaping Flourish. We can do more here. Like, for example, there's damage somebody next to a Voidcursed fighter for 1. That's Reshaping Energies, I think. So let's look down here. What is that called? Unbearable Energies. Yep. So deal 1 damage to the chosen fighter, and this is adjacent to 1 or more Voidcursed fighters, so this could be a Voidcursed fighter on their side. That can all of a sudden be somebody that you're damaging. There's a Voidcursed Push, which is Involuntary Advance, where you're able to push a Voidcursed fighter 1, which I really like because, again, it's agnostic, so it could be them. Force movements. Choose a friendly Voidcursed fighter, make 1 move action with the chosen fighter. If you have one of the fighters with Scything ready through your Flourish, then you could move into a spot with force movements. And so now they haven't actually had to charge into that position. So depending on how their Scything attack goes, they could already be in position to do it again. So force movement could help us a lot. I mean, just being able to move out of sequence is really, really good. So now this one is friendlies only, whereas the push is agnostic. So let's see, what else do we have here? Rolls of dodges are successes in Voidcursed Fighters defense rolls. We don't need that here. And let's see, Pain of Slaughter. You can reroll 1 attack dice in the attack rolls for friendly fighters' attack actions in the next activation step. That's always good. I don't know if that helps the most here. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action that succeeded. Pick 1, heal 2 that fighter, or inspire that fighter after a successful attack action. Heal 2 is probably really for our leader most of the time, but it can really re-up your ability to survive attacks. Like if you've already taken 1, then damage mitigating down the next attack to 1, it's still going through, it's still killing. But you can elevate that with Moment of Rapture. I don't know if I like a Moment of Rapture though, because it's you're hoping that the fighter that's successful is the one that you need this on, right? And so what if they're not? Then this card isn't doing anything for you if they're already inspired or if they're not wounded. Yeah, I don't think that's the play. +2 move, probably not necessary, but that can be really, really scary and get you to. So this could help with something like in Praise of Cain, where they try to move a fighter out of reach and not charge with that fighter. Then, and something to be said about In Praise of Cain too is this card is going to be super matchup dependent. If you're up against a ton of fighters that aren't going to be charging, your classic Swarm Warband, then you're really going to have to kill a lot of fighters before this is going to be available to you. But I still think that's fine. Like I still think this is a good card for 3. But Frenzied Speed could help you reach that fighter in the back. Let's see, what else do we got going here? So we want to get rid of Reshaping Burst. I think. I don't mind it. Like I understand its inclusion, but Leaping Flourish has to go. Leaping Flourish would be better if it was the +2 movement speed. That's gonna get you most of the same places that flying could, but it could do even more for you. Or we can get an extra move in the deck, and I think extra move is what I would lean into. So that should go in, and Leaping Flourish should go out, would be my recommendation. And then one of the nice things about force movements too is it doesn't care if you've already charged or moved that fighter. So that's why I would pick force movements over involuntary advance. However, I like both, and it's a hard pick. It's just you can get so much more distance, even at the cost of a move token. But the fact that you can do it after a charge, like, really elevates force movements. So over here in the upgrades, you know, this must have been a really hard part of the deck to put together, because I noticed neither of the things that could give Void Curse outside of Thrallmaker are in here. So that's going to be Surging Power, and so Surging Power. When you give this upgrade to a fighter, pick one Grievous 1 to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions, or this fighter is Void Cursed. I think this card is one I'd recommend, and same with. So this is hard because then what do we cut? And I don't know if Wellner will want to cut anything in here, and that's okay. This is just making recommendations. So let's see. Unthinking Aid doesn't belong in here. Singular Reshaping, yes, perfect. So this is a card, instead of giving this to a friendly fighter, you can pick an opponent. That opponent chooses a surviving fighter in their warband and gives us upgrade to that fighter. This fighter is Void Cursed. So this card is good if you get it early before you Void Cursed any of them. It's bad if you've already Void Cursed one of them, because if you Void Curse one of them, then they can just hand Singular Reshaping to that same fighter, and it did nothing for you. But if they don't have any, it can get the ball rolling. It can help with Surrendered Will, scoring that for us. And you can give it to your own fighters. So don't forget, even though you can give it to an opponent, you can still give it to your own fighters. And all of a sudden you have more Void Curse fighters on your side, which can help with a big Void Cursed assault, as well as any of the other things that you need Void Curse for. Use this after, so Enervating Form, use this after this fighter is the target of range 1 or range 2 attack action. Give the attacker 1 charge token. No. This is the heal, but this is interesting. I could see this being pretty spicy in here if like the damage mitigation is working really well for you. After this fighter's range 1 attack actions, takes an enemy fighter out of action, heal 1 this fighter. Actually, I thought it was successful attacks. On a reread here, no. I wouldn't have recommended it over anything in the suite already, but I was, if it had been successful attack actions, that's interesting. But you do have to get the kill, which I think is right. Like, this card could be ridiculous otherwise. Aware Your Warrior. This is a push, but we have to like do the push in a way where we end up not adjacent. So I don't think we need that. Star Performer. While this fighter is inspired, rolls of Fury and Smash are successes in this fighter's attack rolls. This is crazy good. Mistress of the Bladestorm. Your warband's persisting flourish gambits are not discarded at the end of the phase, so you can persist them over rounds, which is really good. At the start of the round, add up to 2 flourish gambits from your power discard pile to your hand, so you can start re-seeing flourishes. This is definitely like a whole build path. I don't know if that's what we're doing here. This Gore Drench. This fighter is on guard while this fighter is adjacent to one or more enemy fighters with one or more wound counters. So this is a good upgrade to give yourself once you get into a tenuous position, but not so much if we're reducing ourselves down to 1 shield dice for the Voidcursed. Devotee of the Blade. This fighter's defense characteristic is shield. This fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions have cleave. We're essentially doing that shield bit on our own already. Oh, interesting. But in a deck where we're not reducing our defense dice down to 1, this would allow your dodge to go up to 2 shield. So that's cool. And there we go. That's a review of all the cards that were available to us there. So what did I toss in here? 13. I tossed in Star Performer, Singular Reshaping, and Surging Power. So let's see if any of those can win out over any of the other cards in here. I can see that this was hard space to manage, because do you get rid of multiple follow-ups? And the follow-ups are interesting with Thrall Maker. I don't want to get rid of the range 2 follow-ups. Now, we are comboing at that point in time, but like one of the reasons why I'd want to bring both of them with is because like it just ups the probability of us getting one into hand and working with them. And the follow-ups are interesting in that, so we have these 2 that are our range 2 ones, but then we have Lacerating Blow is actually the more accurate one. So they all have purpose. Blood Sigil -1 damage, so comboing with their mitigation, we're definitely keeping that. Devotee of Slaughter +1 wounds, I think again comboing with their mitigation, we're definitely keeping that. So we have the 3 follow-ups as mentioned. Paragon of the Arena, we're not getting rid of. Refashion Priorities, we're not getting rid of. Thrallmaker, we're not getting rid of. Unnatural Resilience, we're not getting rid of. Yeah, this this is a hard cut that he must have already found himself in. So I think what we could do is we could sacrifice one of the follow-ups. The question is, do you, let's see, Kaylin, finally get to tune into one of these, even if it's towards the back end? Thanks for joining, Kaylin. Let's see. So do we get rid of one of the range 2s and reduce the probability of getting a range 2, or do we get rid of the range 1 even though it's the more accurate one? That's tough. So I think we can get rid of Star Performer. I don't want to. Like, can you imagine? So once we get Inspired Fighters, I guess, I mean, Gryselle is already rocking it at 3. Retaria is rocking it at 3 smash as well. You've got a good probability for crits across 3 dice as well, or 3 dice. So as much as I'd like Star Performer on something like Thralla and Calexis here, we'll go ahead and ditch that back out. And then of these 2, you know, if I was going to bring Surging Power or Singular Reshaping, your main benefit for bringing Reshaping is to help with Surrendered Will, and hopefully contribute towards your end phases. But Surging Power, I think, is probably the better answer, because you've got Thrallmaker helping you Voidcurse them. You've got Voidcurse Assault helping you Voidcurse them, as well as your other reshaping options in here. So we hopefully are covered in that department. What we might not be covered in is getting our own Voidcursed, our own survivors. So Surging Power is a great option for that, because not only are you Voidcursing yourself if you need it, but if you don't need it, you can up the damage output with the Grievous this will provide you. So I like this a lot, and I do think we will get rid of a follow-up for it. Let's keep the one that says Cleave, and the reason for this is because we are hopefully Voidcursing our fighters, so we're hopefully going to get more mileage out of the Cleave than we are going to out of the Ensnare. So let's go ahead and get rid of Criplash, and there we are. We have made recommendations and had a lot of fun working through this deck and trying to figure out what its goals are, which are indeed like full tag row. Like we want to kill anything that we can't tag and turn Void Curse. And we want to enjoy some damage mitigation whenever we're not blocking off of our single block defense with our own Void Curse fighters. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. So that's going to be it for today. We already have a name for this deck as submitted by Wellner, and he called it the Arena's Curse. So we're just going to save it with the recommendations that we've made. And I'm going to get this deck over to the Battle Mallet library so everybody can give it a try if they'd like. And yeah, that's going to wrap us up. Next week is going to be the Starblood Stalkers build that I have in the queue. I don't know yet what I'm going to pair it with. So between now and then, I'll be figuring out what we'll be building with the Stalkers, but it will be the Stalkers. And we'll get to kick off that episode with the Bloodthirsty Hosts. There we are. I wanted to remember the deck name. I was almost just gonna just go with the Crimson Court deck that we built, but the Bloodthirsty Hosts. And that one's been a lot of fun. It's a good puzzle. So look forward to that and a Starblood Stalkers build. You can see, as stated, this deck and many more, all the decks built here on the channel at the Battle Mallet's Nemesis library. You can best reach me in the comments below or on the Mortal Realms Discord. You can check out all the Mortal Realms Network has to offer, including a link to our Discord at themortalrealms.com. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next week. I've been Skylar.